The QPR podcast is sponsored by London Sock Exchange, an independent British sock company founded and run by QPR fans. The perfect Christmas present, their socks are finished by hand and woven with 200 needles for a finer, stronger finish and feature the best in British design. A gift subscription is the perfect festive gift which gives you a year of stylish socks delivered to your door. And because they love QPR on the podcast so much, as a listener you get a whopping 15% discount at thelondonsockexchange.net. Just enter QPR15 when you check out.
QPR, QPR, Brisbane Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Hello and welcome to the QPR podcast. I'm David Fraser. There are four of us this week to discuss all the goings on at Loftus Road. With me, the evergreen and almost ever-present co-founder of the QPR podcast, Paul Finney.
Evening, David.
How are you, Paul?
I'm not so bad.
You're looking good. The QPR podcast is sponsored by London Sock Exchange, an independent British sock company founded and run by QPR fans. The perfect Christmas present, their socks are finished by hand and woven with 200 needles for a finer, stronger finish and feature the best in British design. A gift subscription is the perfect festive gift which gives you a year of stylish socks delivered to your door. And because they love QPR on the podcast so much, as a listener you get a whopping 15% discount at thelondonsockexchange.net. Just enter QPR15 when you check out.
QPR, QPR, Brisbane Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Hello and welcome to the QPR podcast. I'm David Fraser. There are four of us this week to discuss all the goings on at Loftus Road. With me, the evergreen and almost ever-present co-founder of the QPR podcast, Paul Finney.
Evening, David.
How are you, Paul?
I'm not so bad.
You're looking good.
That's awkward,
Let's
isn't it?
move on. And we also have one debutante and one who's been on once before or twice before?
Once before, a long time ago.
So
Also been on before.
I beg your pardon. You've both made one appearance. You are both the Tom Hitchcocks of
Yes.
the QPR podcast. So the first voice you heard was Rob Gilbert. Hello. And the second voice was Dan Zell.
Hello.
Who, we may as well get this out of the way. This is the first time someone has sponsored the podcast and come on that week. So
What an honour.
thank you very much. But you are not coming on as a corporate man from the London Sock Exchange, but indeed a QPR fan, and you run a QPR Instagram feed. Am I right?
I do, yeah. So when I'm not selling men's hosiery, I spend my time running the QPR archive feed on Instagram. It's actually a very exciting day because Ian Holloway himself liked one of our posts today.
Did he really?
He did. It was him taking on Eric Cantona in a game at Loftus Road in the 90s.
Wait. I didn't know Ian Holloway was on Instagram.
Yeah, he just joined. I think he put up. I think his first picture was a selfie of him and Mackie ahead of the game against Preston, which probably wasn't the best player to have a selfie with ahead of that game, considering what happened. But yeah, he's there. He's on Instagram, and he's got a tattoo. His son tattooed him. He
I
put a picture
saw
up.
that.
That's
His
what he
son's a tattoo artist. Is that right? And so he
did.
tattooed.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, for those like me, what is the joy of Instagram?
It's like Facebook.
Just lots of nice pictures.
Oh, okay.
Twitter with pictures.
It's a lot of pictures of people's food. A lot. People
It's
just take
completely
pictures.
picture-led.
Yeah,
You have to put an image with every post.
It's just pictures.
So you can't join and not put. I hate
No, you can't. You
photos.
don't. You don't have to put pictures on. You can just look at other people's pictures.
Yeah, I prefer that. If I put my ugly mug on there, it'll crash in 5
And
seconds.
it's not really a discussion like how someone would go backwards and forwards with you on Twitter. That's not really how it works on Instagram, so you probably wouldn't like it.
My Twitter feed has actually been quite jovial of recent. I haven't even argued with anyone.
So, Dan, thank you for sponsoring us. Anybody out there who does want to sponsor the QPR podcast, it doesn't. We don't make this for free. There are some costs involved. So please, anyone that does support us, we are more than grateful. We are more than grateful. Go to our website qprpod.co.uk and you can click on support the show, and you can do so. So, Dan, you're from London Sock Exchange, which is thelondonsockexchange.net.
Yes.
And that's an amazing pun on socks. And what we did today was we said on Twitter that you're coming on and that you're sponsoring us, and we invited any QPR underwear tweets. Did you see them?
I saw a few of them. Yeah, there's some crackers.
So I think the first one, we started it off by saying that in the team on Saturday would be Connor Stockington.
Good.
Bravo.
Yeah, you like that? Then what did people? Someone came up with
There was some class
absolute
ones, yeah.
banger. Nigel Whittle said the whole team is pants at the moment. Gaz Zurop R said assistant brand manager. Darnell Furlong Johns, like that, Paul. Then Asia ambassador. G-string Park. That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's a shame we haven't got anyone called Joe, because then we could become Joe's Boxers, which was a band from the 80s. There you go.
I'm just sad that no one went for Panty Heinola.
That would have been a good one. That would have been a very good one. Someone also said Anthong Ferdinand,
Oh, that's weird.
Yun Sok Young, and Chris Sambra.
Very good.
Good one.
You could have Tony Thong.
Tony, yeah. Rufus Brief Vet.
Yep.
Alex Stockings. I think that was about it.
Rufus Bra. No?
We also had one other random tweet, not to do with underwear, which was the American member of Congress for Fort Wayne, Indiana. His campaign manager is a chap called Derek Pilley, named us as his favourite podcast.
Wow.
Genuinely,
Like,
Derek Pilley, campaign manager for Jim_Banks, who is the senator for Fort Wayne, Indiana, said we're his favourite podcast.
Is he
Put that
a
on the
decent
poster.
one, or is he one of the mad ones out there?
He's a Republican.
Well, I grew up in a
you
place
know.
with loads of Republicans, but they were different, I suppose.
Well, I don't know what he is. I don't know his vote. I don't know.
So you could
the
be
voting
advertised
record.
as someone who wants to build a wall.
I don't know the
For my
voting
favourite
record
podcast.
of Jim Banks, Congressman for Indiana 3 district.
What's he look like? Is he a bit weird?
He looks... Well, this won't work on a podcast.
No,
but
okay,
he
carry on.
looks like that.
Yeah,
It's like a young Richard Dunn, in a way.
Do you know what? He looks like the sort that have you on an electric chair in 5 seconds.
But anyway, if anyone's listening from Indiana, maybe Derek himself is listening.
Yeah,
because we
Derek.
are his favourite podcast.
Get him on.
I take back everything. It was only just jesting. That's it. Jesting. Because American politics is completely seeing.
Right.
Actually, you lived out there for a while, didn't you, Rob?
I did, yes.
In New York, which I suppose is a bit different.
It is a bit different.
And I was saying that my friend Paul, who's been on the podcast a few times, is actually from America, from the South as well. So he probably knows who this fella is.
Good link. Good
Nice fella,
link.
Paul.
So, let's get back to QPR,
Do we have
shall
to?
we? Well, what else do you want to talk about? Brexit,
Jesus, no, not with my...
especially not with you and Neil. Neil are engineers from the south, and you're from the north, so we're going to have to have a hard border between the two of you. Let's talk about QPR.
We could build a wall, Neil, couldn't we? We could
let-
make it full of Tato Chris. A Tato Chris wall. I'd like that sort of wall. Actually, I can eat Tato because it's got wheat in it. Carry on.
Good fact. Right, Preston, you went.
I did indeed. It was just same as. Another away game without a win. It's now beginning to get not boring, but it's beginning to get predictable. I mean, it's an interesting one because everyone's saying, and I know that we have been talking on Twitter and stuff like that, we need a £5 million striker, we need a £3 million striker, we need to find a £1 million striker. The guy who's currently in the head leading the charts is Leon Clark, who costs practically nothing at Sheffield United. Plus, the guy that scored against us on Saturday for Preston played for Port Vale. And he may not be the greatest player, but on Saturday he battered us. And that's what worries me. I mean, I know it's a makeshift defence and everything else, but he absolutely hammered us. And what they did with Mackie was really clever. They decided from the first minute, he's a fella with the short fuse. We're gonna wind him up, and then we're gonna get really on his arse. And he bet that a decent referee would have pulled two of them together and said, "Look, I see what's going on. Knock it on the head, or I'm booking both of you." No. Mackie then lost his head a wee bit, went in for a challenge, which I didn't think was a
Who
send
pulled up? I thought he pulled up.
Well,
Mackie.
it was. I didn't think it was that bad, but you have to see what happened beforehand. You have to understand that they were winding the hell out of him. So
He's
the
been getting
referees,
more and more wound up, Mackie, the last few
Frustration?
games.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just noticed that a lot of silly challenges, a lot of referees bringing him over, telling him to calm
Brentford
down.
and Reading, he was lucky.
Yeah, it's not been coming because he's not a dirty player, but he goes in hard, and I wasn't surprised when I saw it was a red card.
But Rob, if you remember the old Mackie when he first came to Rangers, he was pretty much hassling, winning the ball for Adele to do what he had to do, or Adele to pass on to Helgeson or Tommy Smith or whatever, then to put it in the back of the net. Trouble is, we haven't got anyone like that now. So he's chasing down players, and then he's waiting for people to come. He hasn't got the pace to carry that on. But on Saturday, I felt he was really unlucky because they did pick on him. They did make it a point. And perhaps it would have been wise to sub him when he was even.
But that 20 minutes.
You could say it was Dave. You could say it was going to happen.
But that's where you need like someone on the pitch to like a captain who can step in and be like, okay, they're getting into him. Just to pull him aside, have a word. That needs a bit of like on field management that doesn't seem to necessarily be there.
The most senior pro on Saturday as well.
be.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Baptiste.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
But you can't. I mean, the thing is, if someone niggles you, you've got to go back for more. We've all played football. If someone gets on your case, you go back. And the referee should have pulled him in, said, knock it on the head. And we should have had a penalty because Washington was going for a ball. He was pushed down. He might have missed anyway. Who knows? There was a handball that was so obvious that Mr. Magoo was waving for it, but the linesman wasn't having it.
70s reference.
Yeah. We are suffering. We are suffering from bad luck, but we're also suffering from not having the quality to finish teams like Preston off, who are not a good side, who may get better, but they're not a good side. Well, what do you feel face for?
No reason.
Have I just made a weird reference?
Not massively. If anybody spots it, they can tweet me. Otherwise, let's carry on.
I
just
said
my
Preston, didn't I?
childish sense of humour.
Oh,
no,
childish.
let's carry on. Dan, you weren't at the game.
I wasn't at the game, but I put myself through the full 90 minutes on the QPR website.
Did you see the bit that they were winding Mackie up?
Yeah,
in the corner
Why
side.
would you do that?
That's
Why
That's
would you?
mad.
Especially
Another way.
when like nothing,
they've lost.
not nothing happened, but you know you're not getting a goal
Just a slow
until
Sunday in the Zell household. No, I thought I do my due diligence before tonight's
Yeah.
show.
I think it's
makes a
smart.
change someone doing it.
It was miserable. It was doubly miserable knowing what was coming.
I do always wonder when they say that 90 minutes now available for a game that we've lost. Who sits and watches? Now I know.
Did you watch it all in rapt attention, paying rapt attention, or were you doing something else?
I was
at the
doing
same
other
time?
stuff.
Right. You
Yeah.
were second screening, as the kids
Like
call it.
fourth screening at some points.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I don't get is
Fair enough then.
what I didn't get was a goal because I had a few before the game. I won't lie. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't even merry. I was going to watch Rangers.
Well,
That'd
you're
be-
never merry, so carry on. As you say.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's true. But we had a free kick, and then they're in the back of the net, and I'm like, hang on a wee second here. What the hell's just happened? Again, just is it switching off? Is it bad preparation? We keep making these silly mistakes. It's killing us.
I don't know. I think to look at it from the other side, if you're a Preston fan, you've absolutely got away with one there. We were unlucky, really, to not get a point. And I do think it's kind of worrying that we looked a bit better with 10 men than 11. We looked like we had a little bit more purpose
Okay, fair
about
point.
the play. But I don't know. I guess everyone's you're knackered if you're playing for 70 minutes with a man down when you're really crap away from home as it is. And it wasn't the only time that we had a free kick and not made the most of it. We actually had a few decent free kicks in decent positions, and none of them went anywhere, which was a shame. On another day, you get a point, and it's quite a good result.
Was that what we are, though? We just think now we're getting to that stage of we're playing. Funny enough, our next away game is Birmingham, and I'm not able to go because I've got to work. So watch us win there. But it's getting a bit easy to read us away from home as well.
We've got to be a good team to. I mean, we haven't won away in 17 games. We've got to be a good team to play against.
Yeah, we went through that little phase. We drew a few away, and you just felt it's coming, and it sort of never did then. And it was like we won the Wolves and Sheffield United game, and everyone kind of forgot about the away form. And then the home form went, it's like, oh, wait, hang on. We actually haven't won away from home in forever. And everyone focused on it. And now it's, record in the country in the top 4 leagues, 17. And it's becomes more and more of a thing, And yeah, you do look and you wonder, where the hell is it coming from? But I do also think about Saturday. I did not sit and watch the 90 minutes like you did. I know. I'll call myself a fan. And I left Brentford early. Don't tell Ollie. But look, Brentford, we got a last-minute goal. And Preston, we concede one. If you switch the luck for the 2 games, you say, Brentford were a good team. They beat us at home. But we've gone away to Preston. We've dug in. We've got a point. We're building from there. When, really, it's...
I was going to say that. The cliche in football is luck evens itself out. Well, weren't we worth a point from those 2 games? And we got it. We shouldn't have really got anything from the Brentford game. And by all accounts, they really dug in and gave Preston a good game, and we were unlucky not to get anything. So maybe it evens itself out. The other things I wanted to ask you, Paul, as someone who was there was a couple of things I noticed. First of all, the ratings. I looked at the ratings from all the fans who were there on Loft for Words. They were pretty good for the QPR team. Actually, apart from, I think, Washington, all the players were rated at over 6, per man. And they got clapped off, from what I could see. So it seemed like they did dig in, but got a bit unlucky there. I was going to ask you about that. And the second one was, how much did we miss Freeman?
Well, you've got to miss Freeman because he's probably one of the best midfielders in the league by a country mile. In the same way that Smithies is one of the best goalkeepers. I mean, you'd have to make Smithies your man of the match because, again, he pulled off some really good saves. The way he controlled his area, the way he tries to marshal the defence and everything else, he is top quality in this league. Going back to what you said, I wouldn't say we were brilliant and I wouldn't say that Preston were bad. It was just 2 mid-table sides trying to play a bit of chess game with each other, and no one was spectacular, no one was brilliant. Pavel had a much better game than he's had for a while, which is good to see. Bidwell was better as well, to be fair. Robinson is just something else. That centre-half position seems to be expressing himself. But again, at no point did I feel going forward we were going to score. And that's a terrible thing to admit. And I'm probably not a really good fan saying that, but you're not getting off your seat going, come on, lads, this is it.
But for me, that's kind of like, it was a typical championship game because there's 2, to be honest, relatively average teams with some okay defenders, but neither of whom had particular cutting edge up front, and it was always going to be the team that who had a striker who could nick a goal, I think, that was going to win it. And,
exactly.
They're 6-7 points ahead of us in the league. There's not much to choose from.
And well played to Stuart, who you had on the podcast last week, because he predicted that he actually said an 85th minute winner from Jordan Hugill would win it for them. And he was 3 minutes out.
And I'm pretty sure he came from Port Vale, which is even worse.
But we had... The thing is, we talk about the lower league strikers, but we took our gamble on Connor Washington.
We paid 2.7 million for him.
We paid a lot of money because we had the money at the time, and we looked into the lower leagues and we went, "This is our guy." He was on a hot streak. He was doing well, and the fans were happy. Whether the club hyped him up or not,
more happy.
The thing is about these lower league players,
you don't know how it's going to go.
Don't. I do believe we had got a player called Charlie Austin once upon a time, and it was a toss-up between him and
Hooper,
the fat striker who plays a bit for Celtic, who I can't even... Hooper.
No, Hooper's playing for Sheffield Wednesday.
He did play for Celtic, didn't he?
But okay, Washington was £3 million from Burnley, and he'd already scored 20-odd goals. It's a little bit different.
Austin was from Burnley.
Yeah. It's a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of clubs chasing Austin.
Well, they're talking about this fella from Charlton now, aren't they, who scored 10... I can't... Do not ask me his name. I saw that in the papers today, that we're in for a Charlton winger who scored 10 goals this season.
Why don't we ask the ex-QPR striker about strikers?
Oh, you and this podcast lot.
What do you reckon?
Segue. Let's ask Kevin Gallen, friend of the podcast, been on as many times as we have, nearly, but we're always pleased to have him on. Hopefully, he's here now. Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Unlike the last 2 minutes at Brentford. Hey!
Woohoo!
Hello, Kev.
Sorry, Kev.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Welcome back. Well, let's deal with that straight away. Were you amongst the people who left early at Brentford, or were you amongst all those liars who said they stayed?
I stayed.
No, I'll tell you what happened. I got a lift down there with my friend, And when the Brentford second goal went in, I wasn't sitting right next to him, but from the corner of my eye, I saw him get up and walk out the ground. So I had no other option to follow him because I didn't fancy either walking or paying for a cab to get home to St Albans. So he gave me a lift. He left early. It wasn't my decision, but I understand why he left. So,
where were you when you heard the two goals?
we was in the car and we were listening on the radio.
What did you think? Shade. Should have stayed.
No, I was surprised, to be honest, because when I was there at the match, I didn't see us look like scoring. So, yeah, I was very surprised and happy, really. So, thinking back, I wish I would have stayed, but I didn't expect QPR to score two in the last couple of minutes. So, it's one of those where, the 93 minutes before wasn't great, but the last minute was brilliant.
And Kev, 20 games in, how are you feeling about the season?
The form over the last, maybe 2 months. Dave, is that your wallet going off?
Yes. That is a fire alarm. Let's hope it goes off. It gets turned off. Carry on if you can.
Right.
Otherwise, they would bring sausages.
Yeah. So, what happened was, we were talking to Kevin Gallen, and then a fire alarm went off in our building, so we abruptly finished the interview. Said fire alarm is now finished, and we should have him back with us. Kev, can you remember what you were saying? Because we can't.
I think we were talking about me leaving early. And then we finished off with 20 games in, how we feel.
Yes. And how are you feeling?
Well, the last month hasn't been great. We got some really good results against Wolves and Sheffield United, and now the last 5 games hasn't been great. I know I think we've lost 4, and we picked up a draw against Brentford, but if we're being honest, we wasn't great in that game. And for Brentford, if you're a Brentford fan or whatever, you'd be a bit sick about conceding 2 goals in the last minute, where we didn't really create much chances, and they sort of dominated the game, dominated the ball a little bit. We improved a little bit in about 15 minutes of the second half, but it wasn't great. So we roll on now to Leeds, and it's a massive game where it's at home, and we need to get some sort of result to stop a sort of a little bit of a rot at the moment.
Kev, what we were talking about earlier on was how difficult or easy is it to find the striker that could be the goal scorer to save us? Because really the problem is we're not scoring enough goals, if we're honest.
No, we're not. And I spoke about this a few months ago when the last time I was on the pod. And, there is strikers out there, but you have to pay a lot of money. But there is actually some other strikers who you don't, and it works. I mean, I think Barnsley have signed Tom Bradshaw from Walsall, was he at? And this season they're not doing particularly great, but I think he scored quite a lot of goals, and he looks like a good goal scorer. So it is difficult, but you look at Leon Clark, who we had at QPR, and he didn't get a game for us, and he's top scorer. I think he's one of the top scorers in the Championship at the moment. So
he is top scorer, I think.
Well, there you go. So it can happen, it can be done, but unfortunately, it's not working. It's not happening for our strikers at the moment, and it's difficult because the last games I saw was the Aston Villa game and Brentford game, and it wasn't as if we created loads of chances for them. So, I feel a little bit for the strikers, but also sometimes you got to help yourself as well. The strikers and that, they have to do better. I mean, I thought Silla in the last game against Brentford was very poor. Looked like he didn't try a leg. Matt Smith always is more effective when he comes off the bench. When he starts, it looks like he can't last more than 30 minutes. Connor Washington just looks a little bit low on confidence, and he's definitely out of form. Where at the start of the season, when I saw the game against Reading, he was excellent, and you're thinking, well, this could be a turning point for Connor, and it hasn't really worked. So it's a difficult one, and it's a hard one to put your finger on.
Do you think also we suffer from the fact that we threw all that money around? So every time we look at a player, the club instantly thinks, you know what, I'm going to bung another couple of nuts on this because they had loads of money. Or do you think?
Well, I think those sort of days are over, but those three strikers we're talking about, they didn't come cheap. So there's no, there's not saying they were like, Ashley Fletcher, is it at Brentford? They signed from Exeter. He's pretty good. I mean, the bloke who scored two against us on the last Monday wasn't overly expensive. So they are out there. It's just we've got to find them, and we have to. And when we do find them, we've got to try and make them better and perform better when they get into the team. So that's a difficult one, because I always find, for some reason, we've signed players and we think they're better than what they are, and it just doesn't really happen for them. And I can only say a handful of players who've come to QPR and look the real deal and look really good. And Smithies has done excellent, and Freeman, and Charlie Austin before, where he came $4.5 million, but it was money well spent.
Hello, Kevin. It's Dan here. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
It's obviously a long time since we've won away from home. As a professional footballer, how much harder is it actually to play a game when you're away? Why are we doing so badly on the road?
Well, I actually went to the last game we won away, and that was at Birmingham. So that's our next away game, I think. So hopefully, we can turn it around next Saturday. I don't know. You sort of go away from home, and you try and there's an element of the crowd. Always when we played, or when I played, the manager always said, you try and stifle the home team by quieting down the crowd, especially if the crowd's particularly noisy. So you always think, if you can keep the crowd quiet, going at half-time 0-0 or on equal terms or winning even, the crowd will turn on them, and then you can, and then their confidence will suffer and they get nervous. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is go out all attack and bring the game, take the game to the home team from the off. And up until recently, the Aston Villa, I think, and the Brentford game, QPR's home form has been great, but the away form, and I do think the way we play and the tactics we've got and the players that we've got, our pitch is a little bit tighter than the rest, and we get closer and we press them really high, and we go for it from the off. And sometimes when we go away from home, the pitch is a lot bigger, and we don't seem to be able to press as well and close them down. So it's a difficult one to put your finger on, and also there's a psychological barrier now because we haven't won now for 17 games away from home. So obviously, you go 1-0 down or whatever, and I think maybe heads drop, and there's a bit of psychological where the players will probably think, you go 1-0 down, and go, oh, here we go again. It's happened again to us. So they need to break that cycle, and we've got to do it very sooner, and starting next Saturday against Birmingham.
You're going to be there, Kev. The Leeds game I'm talking about. You're going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the game on Saturday, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I watched a bit of Leeds the other night against Aston Villa. They're a good footballing team. They're sort of different to what they were last year, where they haven't really got the big, powerful Chris Woods up front, and they more sort of rely on wingers and a number 10, tricky number 10. So play a little bit like Brentford, where they pass and try and pass it through the midfield and into the number 10 between the midfield, our midfield and defence. So that's where Scrowan will have to be on his game, picking up that sort of player, and our fullbacks have to be on their game as well, because they've got fast, tricky players.
Kev, it's Rob here. How much do you think this sort of blip in form is kind of just down to the fact that we are so light with numbers in defence? I mean, we started the season well, playing 3-5-2, so you've always got to have three defenders back there at least before you even factor in the wing backs, and they are just dropping like flies. I mean, is is it a case of, you need partnerships on the pitch, you need to play with people to sort of play yourself into form? Because at the moment, no one knows who they're going to be lining up alongside each week.
Well, I actually think Robinson and Baptiste have been playing pretty good, actually. So
yeah, they've been great, but sort of that third centre, or your right wing back, it's Pavel, it's Cousins, it's Furlong, and then Lynch is in 1 week, and then he's out 1 week, and Anua's not been there for a while. But I mean, you played the game, I certainly haven't. But I mean, how important are those partnerships and playing with someone week in, week out?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think my philosophy would be picking a team if I was the manager would be really just go with my best 11 really as often as possible and as limited changes as possible, because I mean the year that we got promoted in I can just say, or even the year when I first started, that pretty much when everyone was fit, and I know there's a lot of injuries, but when everyone was fit, it was pretty much the same team. Sometimes strikers go out of form and you have to switch it about a little bit. I understand that, but when I remember it was sort of Danny Shooter and Clark Carlisle at the back. Danny Shooter got injured, so Arthur Airy came in. Me and Furlong was up front. Furs got injured a bit, and Tony Fort played. So you're right. You sort of develop a partnership, and you sort of develop without even. It sort of comes naturally without even trying your best. It comes naturally where, especially as a striker, and you're playing up front, and that's sort of have a good football brain. So, and it sort of comes naturally where Furs would go short. That means I would go long, and it's sort of you just do sort of the opposite. Furs goes up for the header, you go and you get as near to him as possible for the flick on. So you have to develop partnerships all over the pitch, and that includes, you're right in saying that includes the two centre halves, the right back and the right midfielder, the midfielders, the left back and the left midfielder, and the strikers. So you have to. The more you play with each other, the more you become, I think, better and a better team.
Yeah. And
you gel better. But problem is, the strikers have been misfiring, so he's been changing it. The manager's been changing it quite a lot because he can't get a good formula. And the same with at the back. He has had a lot of injuries. So who would be, if everyone was fit, then it'd be interesting to see who would his main defenders be. But I have to say, Baptiste and Robertson have been pretty good. And I think the problems are, can't really, if you can score a goal and get in there, if you can score a goal and get in the lead and maybe get in two in the lead, then it takes a whole lot of pressure off the defence.
But on the plus side, your Magic Hat song's pretty safe.
For a while, yeah.
For a while. Kev, thank you. Always good to hear from you.
No
Thanks for
problem.
joining us.
Anytime.
And have a good evening. And we'll hopefully we'll have a win for you on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it can happen. It can all change, and it's a tough game, but we need to get a good start and get in the lead, and hopefully the crowd get behind the team, which they always do. And like the game against Sheffield United, I thought the crowd were excellent, and the team sort of responded off the crowd, and the crowd responded off the team, and everyone seemed to be working really hard. So we need to get back to that quickly, and hopefully it starts on Saturday.
Good man. Cheers, Kev.
Good man. Cheers, Kev.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers.
All the best. Bye.
Right.
Interested to know what you said about the crowd, because there's that debate, isn't it? Did the crowd spur on the team? Did the team spur on the crowd? And he said, if you perhaps the obvious work together, the crowd and team. Who knew? Was that easy?
which brings me on to the next subject. I have one word, which is the area of London that we're in at the moment. In fact, which is Holloway.
Oh, very well.
See what I did
Nicely
there?
done.
Did you
Nice.
play on that all day? Cause that's
No, it's
Just came to you.
literally just occurred to me.
excellent. For any stalkers, he's joking. It's actually Holland Park we were called.
Okay, so what do we think? We can't have a podcast without discussing Holloway. What's the current thinking? What's the thinking this week on Ian Holloway? Paul, I'm sensing from you that the lady is for turning. That you are starting
Compare me
to
to Thatcher. Bloody hell's a first.
deliberately.
Oh god no. Drink the
I'm
cider.
sensing from you that you are picking up on a sense that his time may increasingly be up?
Mystic Fraser, I likes it. No, I'm actually neither a pro or anti-Holloway. I felt he was wrong to say what he said last week. I thought the apology was pretty half-arsed. Disappointed he didn't clap the fans on Saturday. You've a chance to reach the hand of friendship, as it were. They've travelled a long way. It was a long journey, one of the longest in our season. And maybe he was angry. Maybe he was hacked off. Maybe whatever. He went down the tunnel, didn't acknowledge this. Bircham acknowledged this, and some of the players did, which was nice. But I just kind of think that with Ian, it's either you're with me or you're against me, and he needs everyone to be with him. And those who were toitering on whether he's good or bad, or should be sacked or not sacked, have probably gone the other way. That said, I keep going back to what Clive said last season, and I totally agree with him. The signs were there that things weren't great. The 2 matches of 6 that we lost was unacceptable. And the board needed to either stick or twist then. There is no point in the board sacking him, bringing someone else in. Does that mean then we're going to restart the academy? Are we going to start looking at the under-23s again? Are we going to start from scratch again? I don't think we can, and I don't think the fans will be accepting of that. As for the performances, he needs to buck his ideas up. If Ian Holloway says, I'm a passionate man, that's why I said what I said, fair dues. Football fans are also passionate, and we also have a right to express our opinion, as does the manager about us. And what I always find, especially with someone like... I remember Ray Wilkins was interviewed years ago, and I think it might have been Kick Up the Arse or something, or there was a meeting. And when you ask these people a question who've played the game, the immediate response is, how many caps have you got? How many have you played in top flight? Well, nonsense, like Joey Botton did with Sagos on Twitter. Well, have you played in the elite league? Well, no, but that doesn't mean you can't have an opinion. And I always
That isn't what Ian Holloway was saying.
No,
that isn't what he was saying.
He
was right. So I wasn't here last week when you were talking about it. Mm-hmm. I was really disappointed, if I can say that. I didn't like the QPR fans' reaction to Ian Holloway on Twitter. I thought he had a right to say what he said in that interview. I thought it was refreshing. I thought we cry out for authenticity in football. We cry out for characters. Just because that means sometimes someone might say something you don't like. I was one of those fans who left early. We all got caught with our pants down, and he had a go at us for it. And fair enough, absolutely fair enough. I tell you why I think he's right. Because football fans go on again and again and again about we want to be treated like fans and not customers. That argument keeps repeating itself. He treated us like fans. He didn't treat us like customers. Customers are entitled to walk out whenever they want. They pay their money, make their choice, etc., etc. We were fans, and he felt that we let him down by leaving, and he had a right to say it. We have a right to argue back. We have a right to leave. But I thought it was great, and the only thing that annoyed me was that pathetic half apology from the club. It wasn't
an apology.
Well, it wasn't an apology.
It was obviously the media team points. You got to do something.
Yeah,
but
and he said, "Get stuffed." I'm not saying anything.
I completely agree with you, David. Because the thing is, it's Ian Holloway that's saying it. The man has managed QPR for over 300 games. This isn't. Never mind. This isn't Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank or Harry Redknapp turning around and saying this is someone who gets QPR, who has now come to us twice when no one else would touch us. The first time especially, we were on our knees and he turned us around. The man has so much, for me anyway, he has so much credit in the bank. He
when
can
did we
turn.
Get so sensitive.
I don't disagree. Look, I do think everyone was desperate to be outraged, but I don't think Holloway's outburst was what brought out this sensitivity. It's been difficult being a QPR fan, essentially, since, apart from Bobby Zamora sticking the ball in the net at Wembley, it's coming up for 6-7 years of being hard, being a QPR fan, of really not much to enjoy. And I think this is just a bit of outpouring of that came out from the fan base.
Well, I agree. As a sort of part-time archivist, I guess I would take a slightly longer view, but we're not going to win the Champions League, so we're not going to win a lot of silverware. I'd much rather be turning up every week, watching a group of players and a manager who I can kind of relate to, who also care about the club and stick with them, than just sort of the first sign of the momentum turning, get rid of him and bring in who, like, Chris Coleman or equivalent. No, like, and I don't think we're going to get relegated, he says. I think we're probably performing not par, but not actually that far off par. We're 16th? Where would we like, fine, we're 18th, but fine, if we had 5-6 more points on the board, we'd be like having,
I think we're on par to stay up.
Yeah.
I think we are.
But that's,
that's a different discussion. That's what we're aiming for.
To be honest with you, the mindset of QPR is we are hoping for 3 teams worse than us. So if 3 teams get a jog on, like if Bolton, Burton and Burnham get their arse together, then we're in a relegation battle. You're being deluded by thinking we're not.
We are 100%.
Yeah, for sure. The objective is stay up.
The objective is, look, listen, everyone says our expectations are high. The fees to watch QPR is high. The prices are not cheap for home and away fans. So it's okay for the board and the club to say, look, it's about finishing this just above the relegation zone when we're charging top-end prices of the Championship. And we are charging top-end prices.
That's fair.
And we've also got a higher budget than most other teams. With or without FFP, we still have a big enough budget to compete better than what we're doing. So the argument is, there's been all these transfer windows. Are we getting any better? That's where we are.
I can't say we are. If I was to say, are we getting any more stable, which is a very unexciting, non-inspirational thing to say, I would say the answer to that is probably yes. We're much less erratic as a club, as a team even. Don't have such a short memory. We've been talking on this podcast this season about they're a breath of fresh air, those 3 midfielders. Yes, we don't necessarily have the strikers, but we're kind of getting somewhere. No? Now, are we getting better? No, can't say we are. But we're much less erratic all round and more stable. And I know that's boring and it's not aspirational, but isn't that sort of what we've been asking for the last few years?
With a few more points.
Yeah, but I like the fact that Luke Freeman's suspended for the Preston game. So
There's
Holloway
always a reason.
But no, what I like is that Holloway he's putting in a youngster and he's saying essentially when we sell Luke Freeman, because if we are stable, then we should be looking to sell Luke Freeman in January or in the summer for 6-7 million. But we should have Elias Chair, or however you say his name. He should be being cultivated to come in and play that role, and then you can go and spend that 5-6 million on a couple of other players, and it's going to take time. But look, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were in a relegation battle then. We used to be in a relegation battle then.
The thing
but
is,
you're
Rob,
absolutely right about the prices. You are 100% right.
The thing as well is that we've had 2 lots of we've had parachute money from the years that we were in the Premiership. We also got 9 million we weren't banking on from Sterling. We got the money from Everton for the young lad that went there, Bowes or whatever it's called. There's all these money coming in, and all right, we're not spending the money we did in the Premiership, but we have to be concerned. I mean, take the youth team for instance, right? The youth team has had 7 different goalkeepers this season. So we're saying we're going to bring players in from the youth, we're going to bring players in from the 23s. People are not playing the same games from the top to the
But that's not Holloway's. Getting rid of the manager is not going to help that.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if you want to, our plan, we're told the new plan is that we're going to have a better scouting system to pick up lower league players. Fine, we're going to bring in youth. How are you going to bring in youth players if you bring in trialists in, and then your main striker is then playing as a winger to make room for the
that's fair,
forward?
but then that's almost like, okay, you've got a whole team of people then that need to sort of buck their ideas up, be it Holloway, Penrice, Ferdinand, whoever.
Everyone needs to kick up the arse.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to kick up the arse, because while we're talking about this and while we're going, we're not going to get relegated, we are going to get relegated. We have to face facts. We need to put a finger
that every season on here.
Sadly, I've been right a few times.
A couple of times.
Dave, we're not scoring enough goals.
We're not.
Football's not that frigging complicated.
But what is the answer? What QPR have done every year for the last 7 years is not the answer. Fire the manager after a bad run. We've said this time and time again.
I just said that. The time for firing Holloway was before the pre-season.
You've got to stick with him now.
If we stick with him and we get relegated, was the plan then to go down and then resurface and rebuild and start again?
Well,
it's a massive gamble.
My dad actually is of the opinion that going down may not be the worst thing in the world, because suddenly you've got
Flanders will walk for the start, surely.
there's actually you've got Easy on loan at Wickham. League 2 jump into Championship's a big jump. League 2 to League 1, maybe. Is that your striker for next season if you go down? You got Bright Osei Samuel, who was playing League 2 at Blackpool, to Championship, big jump, but suddenly League 1, not as big a jump. Obviously, you don't want the team to go down, but maybe if the long-term plan is ironclad and set, then you go down. You go, we've gone down, but we're prepared for it. Look at Burnley; they went up to the Prem, they went down. They didn't panic. They went straight. And look at them now.
And that's what Huddersfield are planning.
Yeah,
Huddersfield are already planning.
I think Brighton as
how
well.
They're going to be
I
next
think
season
Brighton
in the
as well.
Championship.
I would, to go back to your point, I'd rather be watching a team that's kind of stable, fine, go down, take the hit, be stable, come back up, than chuck a load of money at a new manager, getting whoever Slutsky,
I think
he's free, and then it all goes tits up, and you're in even worse shape.
To be fair to Paul, he's the one out of the four of us that slapped up to Preston this weekend. Us three didn't.
That doesn't matter.
He probably didn't watch 90 minutes on his laptop.
I think the point is you're gonna get. You're gonna.
That doesn't matter. Listen,
you're gonna be more at your. You're gonna be more at your wits' end or the end of your tether if you're doing the miles, because I'm sitting at home when the full-time result comes in, I can turn off my TV. You've got to get in the car and come home. But
I haven't got a life. It's that simple. It's not that complicated. I just go because I'm a boring old shite, and my daughter wants me out of the house, and I'm not very popular at home, so they want me out, and the dog hates me. No, I'm just worried that we're sleepwalking into a relegation battle. I mean, if our idea of three worst teams, that's a bad starting point, right? And that was our starting point at the start of the season. It's going to be three teams worse than us. If it is to go down and rebuild, that's a massive gamble, because these investors, when you're one league away from the Premiership, you have a chance. 2 leagues away from the Premiership, you can. Sheffield United took 6 years to get out of League One. Look at where they are now, because League One, believe it or not, it's different from when we were in the old Division 2. It's a lot harder. There's a lot bigger sides in it. I mean, everyone says about spending money on strikers. Sheffield Wednesday spent bundles on strikers. They're still struggling. To me, you have to get the players in for the game plan that you want. And if they're not doing it, and we're in this position, if we're going into January and we're still not winning games, and we still haven't won away from home, and we're out of our arse in the FA Cup, then what do we do?
Well, I think it's QPR. You know what QPR are going to do. They're going to sack the manager. Because they didn't sack him this November.
But then
so
who sacks the board for making the wrong decisions? Because it's all their decisions. I mean, Les has been there now and overseen 3 managers. This will be his 3rd manager. Les was director of football when we were in the Premiership. If it goes wrong...
4th manager, isn't it? It's his 4th. Redknapp.
No, he became director of football when Redknapp left. Redknapp left, and then the next day, Les was promoted.
Okay.
You can't really tie them two together.
Okay.
So it's a third. But what I'm saying is that if you take over as director of football in the Premier League and your club ends up in League One, on
doesn't
your watch,
look good.
It doesn't look good. And I'm not blaming Les, and I'm not blaming Ian, and I'm not blaming Bertram, because like Paul Furlong and everyone else, the DNA is QPR. But then Stuart Pearce's DNA is Nottingham Forest, and they sacked him.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I'll tell you what. Let's talk about it on the podcast next week.
No, because I think we'll beat Leeds. That's the daft thing about it. I'm having all this whinging, but I'm still going to go there. I went to Preston thinking we'd fucking win. Why you did an impersonation of a goldfish?
Because I was about to start the phrase ours end.
Yeah,
we keep getting in trouble for hitting an hour on this podcast, and we are not going to do it on my watch. And it's currently...
You're like the proud of Miss Jean Bruder, you are.
50 minutes and 15 seconds, although minus edits, it will probably be a bit less than that. And we are going to finish before the hour. So, ours end.
Don't start with me.
Anything you haven't talked about, mentioned, you can mention. Other things to talk about include Villa at the weekend. Sorry.
Time machine time.
Read the wrong note. I read the wrong note. Leeds at the weekend, who drew at Villa last weekend. MK Dons in the Cup. I'll start with my R's end. QPR announced that they're having a hoops wall outside the club shop. Did you see this?
I did.
For £100, you can buy a tile in it. Lovely Christmas present. And you can say, to my lovely wife and daughter, as I'm sure you will, Paul, and you get it engraved and it's by the club shop. Now, we often float the idea that the club listen to our podcast and copy the ideas that we come up with.
Uh-huh.
I am sure we talked about this 2 weeks ago. We did, didn't we?
I mentioned it, but mine was more in in memory of those who are now not there.
Well, you can do that as well, but we definitely talked about this as an idea.
Well, you don't
and
the club listen to us.
12 days later, the club are launching it just in time for Christmas.
So is it just a matter of time before they launch a sock subscription? Is that what
Do
you're
you
telling
do
me?
QPR socks?
Not yet.
Hoop socks.
Yeah. Well, we'll
I like
see.
the idea of
should
hoop
do.
socks. I like that. And we could also do like the old, what we need is someone to have the foresight. Like next season, I'd love to see the 82 away shirt come back. It's been way too long. If you're listening at QPR,
The red one.
yeah, it's
class.
black shorts,
Yeah.
black socks. It's just heaven. I've almost had a moment.
So, Dan, we'll come on to you now then. You have 4 pairs of
I
socks
do. I've got
there.
some. I've got
Are they
4
socks for
They're
us?
socks for you. You can
Oh.
choose amongst yourselves. We've got some very sort of millennial-friendly
Yeah.
avocados.
Avocados on socks.
We've got some apples and pears on socks.
that the Cockney socks?
We've got some pigeons on socks and some ducks. So the 4 of you can duke it out.
Very good.
Have you got
Thank
any?
you
Have you got
very
any?
much.
Have you got any with shamrocks, leprechauns, or harps?
Maybe for next season.
You evil man! You evil man!
Maybe for next season.
I'm going to take the ducks. Thank
ducks.
you very much.
The ducks.
200 needle count.
And they all come with styling notes as well, so you can see
Very
on
good.
the back exactly what you should be
I'm going
pairing
to go
them
for
with.
the avocado.
Right, now,
So what do I get? I get
as much as we love talking socks, when you're ours end, try and not talk about socks.
I was just going to give a shout out to Danny Dicchio, in fact.
Hello.
I don't know if you saw his... he's working at Toronto
yeah.
in
He's
MLS.
been on the podcast. He
Yeah.
has.
Friend of the pod.
And they've got to their first ever cup final next
What's
week.
his position there? He was like academy manager.
No,
Club
I
legend.
think-
Yeah,
I
just
think
like
he's
all round,
ambassador, isn't he?
just good man.
I think he's
He's
ambassador.
their Andy Sinton, I think.
Yeah, he's around. Yeah, he is.
I think.
What do you mean? The big cup final in America?
Yeah.
Or the little cup
Yeah.
final. Oh,
No.
he did the big one, has he?
well,
end of season one.
not the like championship game. But
So this is
the
like
cup.
Cardiff getting to the FA Cup final. You're not in the country, but you can anyway.
I'll let you tell him that.
Congratulations.
No,
Dan.
congratulations. I prefer Canada anyway.
Well, it's just
And America.
Nice
They're
to
all
see
great.
an alumnus doing all right somewhere.
Rob.
Okay, so I tweeted this out earlier, which is from 2010, working backwards, every team that we have pulled in the FA Cup that we've been drawn against. See if you hear a pattern here. Sheffield United, Blackburn, MK Dons, Chelsea, West Brom, MK Dons, Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Blackburn, MK Dons. So
Yes, I've noticed the pattern.
yes,
We lose.
yes, that's one.
We
But
won one.
That's 11 ties. That's MK Dons 3 times, Sheffield United twice, and Blackburn twice. Now, I'm rubbish at maths,
Blackburn next year.
but I would love to know what the probability, like what were the chances of pulling one of MK Dons, Sheffield United, or Blackburn this time? Because we only...
huge.
I'm useless at maths, but maybe someone that's listening is good at maths, and they could work out what the chances were of pulling one of those 3 teams, because we seem to always get them and lose embarrassingly.
Well, there's another way of looking at that, Rob.
Go on.
In life, in history, we all have a chance to turn the tide, make our own history. And you're right, I'm sick of getting beat by them bastards. It's not right, you're right. It's horrible. And it was always going to be them. But then we lost our car plan, for Christ's sake. I mean, we could draw. You can imagine the FA Cup draws being made, right? You're like, you somehow got to the third round, like Newport County or whatever. You're not having a great season, or someone who's not having a good season. You get to the third round, you're going like, Jesus Christ. QPR fucking great. That's it. We've got it in the 4th round. Thank you very much. And it's getting embarrassing. I think we officially now have the worst cup run in the country.
Worst third round record.
Yeah, and it's just embarrassing. And it's horrible. And I used to love the first time I seen QPR live, if I'm being honest, which I have to be, was the FA Cup final in 82, because they didn't have live matches when I was a kid, because I'm so fucking old. So it's a magical thing. I wish the club would take it seriously, because if we are just going to toter between bottom and mid-table and excuse after excuse why we're not doing well, the FA Cup's a great way to lose yourself in hope and anticipation, and maybe getting on TV and actually fucking winning.
Was that your Oz end?
No. Carry on, Robert.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I love the FA Cup, but it was interesting that sage of all QPR wisdom, Dave McIntyre, said that maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing for Rangers to go out the Cup, have a week away, warm weather training, and kind of hole away in the boys, reset, and go again in January.
Just not enter.
No, not
Like
enter, but
United
it might.
in
If they
2000.
lose, they've suddenly got actually time on the training pitch. You assume Perch and Newell, all that lot coming back, coming close to fitness. I disagree because I'd love to see a cup run.
I'd just like to see a win.
I'd
We're
love
going
to.
to
Yeah.
win. We'll beat
I
MK Dons.
think going back, this is my R's end, David. All right, so as you know, I am Ian Holloway. I'm unhappy with our fans. I think the fans are wrong. They should never leave the stadium. Of course they shouldn't. They should be behind me. All right, Ian, shove it down our throats. Make us eat our words. Win some games of football.
You cannot tell me that is the entirety of your R's end from start to finish. You are a changed man. If that is that's not never your R's end.
Certainly is.
Okay, fine. Well, why don't you start us off on predictions then for Saturday, Leeds United at home?
We'll win.
Score,
Don't care. Just want to win.
Rob. Prediction.
I actually think they will somehow get a 2-1 win.
Dan.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ugly win. 2-1.
I'll take that.
I think
Yeah.
you've said 2-1, 2-1. I'll go 1-0.
All
1-0
four of
Rangers.
us. We're in the worst form. All four of us
There's
are
no way we're
predicting a
going to
win.
keep a clean sheet, so I'm agreeing with the 2-1. There's no way we can keep a clean sheet, not with a half-fit defence.
I agree.
Thank you for listening to the QPR podcast. We'll be back next week.
QPR, QPR, Cliff Rangers.